Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Paul with Spheric Reptiles, and I thank you so much for tuning in to this video today on how many snakes are just too many snakes. And I definitely welcome you, whether you're a returning viewer or you're a new viewer. This channel, if you are new, is created just for people so that when you're at home by yourself and you're at your wit's end and you got this reptile and you're trying to figure out issues, you can tune into a Spheric Reptiles channel, especially if it's about ball pythons. And hopefully we can address some of the questions that you might have so that you can have just one more proof source. I always recommend you to find at least 2 proof sources for something before you implement it. But that way, it's a channel that will actually help just the average person that's at home, works during the day or is busy otherwise, and they've done their research and they might be at their wit's end. Today's question asks, how many snakes are just too many snakes? And then you could apply that to reptiles or anything, but since this is a reptile channel, we'll just keep it to reptiles and I'll keep it to snakes because that's what people tend to get a whole lot of because they're so easy to store. So it's a crazy question, right? People love reptiles. Keeping reptiles bring you so much joy. The way that I like to explain it to people is like having that super cool saltwater fish that you can take out and hold. And then you can put it right back in the salt water to further enjoy it. So whether you have a rack system like you see behind us, which, you know, I definitely revamped this because we're growing. And that's another video when I'll talk about everything about what we've learned and what we've gained throughout, you know, year 1, now going into year 2. But yeah, it's crazy, man. You can also use a bioactive enclosure and you can definitely, that allows you to have a little bit better view of your animal, give your animal a lot more enrichment. But for our animals, we take them out all week long. I probably spend just way too much time. And that's how I came up with the question of how many snakes are too many snakes. And for me, we're still able to handle it because it's 2 of us, even though I do the majority of the husbandry. Lynn does a lot as well. So I can't say that it's all me, but we have a great system. And so if you want that system, definitely email the link below, info@sphericreptiles.com, and I'll send you a manual. It'll be a digital manual. I'll just return it to your email address. To ask the question of how many is too many, pass 1. So you've already bought into the idea of having a ball python or a snake or a reptile. And that's great. You got 1, the costs are very low. I don't think that ever creates an issue. But what happens when you go from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4 to 5, now you go to 10, now you go to 15, now you go to 20. So there are some things that I want you to consider with each addition to your reptile family. Like if you have kids, each additional mouth that you have to feed, raise and love and take care of, it takes a different level of financing and attention from you. So the same thing applies to snake, guys. You can't just get 5 snakes in the case, like, so if you got 5 ball pythons, 5 bulls, 5 retics, 5 bearded dragons, you know, just whatever. It's going to take more time and it's actually exponentiated from that. So it's important to know your limit. Knowing your limit, that sounds crazy, know your limit, like you're drinking or something. No, you're not fucking drinking. You're taking care of animals all day. I mean, they definitely require your attention if you want a sociable animal. But even if you don't want a sociable animal that you can hold, and some reptiles, this is a disclaimer, some reptiles are just not meant to be held, like the same thing with anything else, you know. So you do have some things, like if you have a green tree python, an emerald tree bull, I definitely wouldn't recommend holding those all the time because they're just not used to that. But if you have a ball python or something that's more sociable, and you should know that from doing your research, remember it's research, 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 then you'll know which animals are better suited for how long you can hold them or if they need to be held at all. I mean, because like you wouldn't go around holding a poison dart frog, but it's still kept as a pet. And that's my example. I'll just leave it at that. So you do your research and you'll find out. Knowing your limits based on 3 things first. And the first is the snake itself or the reptile itself, the housing, and then the cleaning and feeding. So I guess you could say housing and cleaning are one. So you got the snake, the housing and cleaning, because that's the same thing if you don't have a clean house, you know, so I'm leaving it under that roof. And then as well as the feeding. Get your snake, definitely, I wouldn't say go into debt over buying a snake, but definitely get something that's within your comfortable price range, because just like buying a dog, the buck doesn't stop there. You got to do a lot of other things, prepare, make sure that it's housed right. And you got all this equipment, whether it's a thermostat, under tank, heater, radiant heat panel, ceramic heat emitter. Then you got the water dish, you got the cage itself, you got the locks for the cage, there's a lot of things that I encourage you to research just about that snake and the housing. And then you have to buy the cleaning supplies. You have to make sure that you have the right substrate. You got to make sure you got all this stuff before you ever bring the animal home. Just like you would if you had a child. You wouldn't just bring your child home and not have a bed set up, a car seat, none of that stuff, no formula or a breast pump or whatever you need to get your baby going, diapers, of course. The same thing applies with the reptiles. So that all fits into those two things for limits. And on average, I'm going to say that you're going to feed 2 to 4 times per month if you have a ball python or any other snake, at least 2 to 4 times per month. So that cost can be either $10 to $20 a month for one snake. So it depends on how you get your animals, how accessible they are. Seems like the less accessible they are, the more people can charge you. So in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we're paying about $4.30 for a wean rat, and then a small to medium rat's going to be about $4.50 to $4.75. Now, when you get outside of that, of course, it goes down, but let's just stick with $10 to $20 per month. So, of course, you can multiply that out, and that comes out to just for one snake, if you're feeding live. And of course, the cost for frozen thaw go down, but I like to stick with live because whenever there's a problem, that's what people are probably going to divert back to. That's going to be $120 to $240 per year, because it's per month times 12 for each snake. So that's just something to consider, guys. So if you have 5, it's 5 times that. So that'd be anywhere from $600 to $1,200 a year. And then you can double that if you go to 10 to $1,200 to $2,400. And the cost just exponentiates for that. And with that being said, I can definitely tell you that most breeders who breed snakes, they're going to get out of the business for 1 or 2 reasons. Either they don't have the money to feed their animals or raise the rats to feed their animals, or they don't have the time. It's not because they fall out of love with the animals. It's either because they don't have the money to feed them or they don't have the time. And so that leads us to the fourth thing. And so remember, we had the snake, we had the housing and the cleaning. So your cleaning schedule, you need to just come up with that, and the feeding. And the last thing comes down to time. So time is the most valuable commodity that we have, period. So I don't know how you value your time, but I value my time so much to where I came up with an operations manual to make sure that I'm as efficient as I can be, as clean as I can be. I mean, I even schedule when I'm holding each reptile just so that I can make sure that I get to it. Because I tell you what, guys, when you got 1, 2, or 3 reptiles or snakes, it's easy. You just go in there and you grab it and, you know, hey, this is great. 30 minutes a day. I can hold both of them at one time, but we have close to 40 animals. And so now that we have close to 40 animals, I schedule it. So as I said before, like if you take this rack behind me, I just start up here. It's a number system. Even though they have names, I number it. I make sure I get out each one of the snakes at their time frame during their time of the week, just to make sure that they know me and they get to do something other than stay in these tubs. Now, I'm not going to go into racks or tubs versus bioactives, but I think both of them require you to reach in, grab your animal, and interact with them to give them a little bit more enrichment or excitement to their life. Because as you know, if you stayed in a room, you'd go crazy too. So, but anyway, that time. So how much time do you have to actually spend with your reptiles as you exponentiate your growth, as you go from 1 to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20? You have to make sure that you have the adequate amount of time to do all those previous 3 things. So to deal with your snake, to deal with the housing issue, so changing the water, making sure the temperature's right with a temperature gun, doing all those things, as well as finding time to either source your feeding or have your feeding mailed to you. So that's either frozen thaw will be mailed to you, or you're having to go out and actually pick up the live animals and then do a pre-killed or feed live. That's up to you. But that's what it takes, guys. That time is so valuable. So if you look at your normal day's schedule, you still have to eat and take care of yourself. So if you're not doing that, then, it could just be like, oh my God, but it's not like that for me, because I really do love it. And I'm so scheduled and regimented in the things that I do that it's just a natural thing for me to just go in. Hey, I got to do some work stuff that night. So I'll get a snake, wrap her around my arm, or put her in, I bought these tree nets to where, or I'll just let them free roam and just keep an eye on them. If I can do something and watch them, I'll just do that, guys. But so remember, so the question is, how many snakes are too many snakes? I think that's a good question. I don't know how many other questions you could ask, because once you know how to take care of animals or an animal, then adding another mouth isn't going to hurt you that much. But, the cost of the snakes, the housing, with the cleaning, the feeding, I think that's a big, big component that people really don't stress enough. And then the amount of time that you have, which is the most valuable thing for you and your animal. Guys, I want you to take that into consideration, because I love reptiles. And if you're watching this, you probably love reptiles too, or snakes, or whatever you love in the reptile hobby. But anything to make it better for you, right? And to make it better for your animals. So, hey guys, I thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm really interested in your comments. So let me know what you think about this video. If I'm kind of being a little too strong or a little too soft, whatever, just fucking let me know. But as always, guys, enjoy the time that you have with your reptiles, or that you spend with your reptiles, and enjoy the time that you have with your family. Thank you.